Imagine having the power to connect with anyone, anywhere, at any time, not through technology, but through something more fundamental, the art of human conversation. In 1936, Dale Carnegie wrote what many considered the definitive guide to human interaction. But the world has changed. The rules have evolved. And in today's complex social landscape, we need new tools to navigate our relationships. This is where Leil Lowndes' masterwork, How to Talk to Anyone, becomes essential. Through years of research and real-world application, Lowndes discovered that success, in business, love, and life, comes down to 92 specific techniques anyone can learn. Think about your last awkward conversation. That meeting where you couldn't find the right words. The opportunity you missed because you couldn't make the connection. Imagine having the exact tools to handle each moment with confidence and grace. Lowndes isn't just a theorist. She's coached Fortune 500 executives, trained Peace Corps members, and helped thousands transform their communication skills. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, Psychology Today, and Time magazine. But more importantly, she's uncovered patterns in human interaction that most of us never see. In the next hour, we'll examine these patterns. We'll explore the techniques that separate those who merely talk from those who truly connect. And we'll learn why speaking to anyone has become more valuable than ever in an age of endless digital communication. Welcome to the complete analysis of How to Talk to Anyone, a guide that might change how you see every conversation from this moment forward. 7 seconds. That's all it takes for someone to form a complete judgment about who you are. In a groundbreaking study at Princeton University, researchers discovered that people decide their competence, trustworthiness, and likability in less time than it takes to read this sentence. These instant assessments shape every relationship, every business deal, and every opportunity that follows. Leil Lowndes understood this science when she developed the flooding smile, a powerful technique that transformed how executives at major corporations approached their first meetings. Unlike the quick, mechanical smiles we're accustomed to, the flooding smile creates an immediate bond through precise timing. Let me share what happened in one of Lowndes' seminars. A CEO was meeting potential clients for years with minimal success. His approach was professional, and his credentials were impeccable. Yet something was missing. After learning the flooding smile technique, his success rate in initial meetings increased by 60%. The difference? A single second of delay. But the smile is just the beginning. That sticky eyes concept reveals why some people command attention while others go unnoticed. It's based on a simple truth: eye contact patterns in every culture and country determine who leads and who follows. Consider this: when Lowndes worked with a struggling sales team, she discovered their average eye contact lasted 1.8 seconds. Top performers consistently maintained contact for 4.3 seconds. That 2.5-second difference represented millions in revenue. Then there's posture, the silent announcement of your status. Lowndes calls it hanging by your teeth, a technique that instantly elevates your perceived authority. A study of 2,000 corporate photographs revealed that 89% of executives photographed over 10 years maintained this exact posture blueprint. Let's explore the subtle but crucial elements of the handshake. In Lowndes' research, she discovered that top negotiators use a method she calls the heart-to-heart handshake. It's not about grip strength, it's about positioning. When world leaders meet, watch their handshakes closely. They angle their bodies to create a heart-shaped space between them. This isn't coincidental. A Fortune 500 company implemented this technique during a major merger. The result? Both negotiating teams reported higher levels of trust from the first meeting. The method works by tapping into primal human instincts about personal space and connection. Body language fundamentals extend beyond these initial moments. Lowndes introduces matching and mirroring, a technique skilled communicators use worldwide. Picture this. In a high-stakes business meeting in Tokyo, a Western executive accidentally earned the trust of his Japanese counterparts by unconsciously matching their movements. What seemed like luck was a demonstration of advanced body language principles. Here's what most people miss about first impressions: they're reading you even before you speak. Your body broadcasts signals every second. Lowndes documented over 50 distinct nonverbal cues that successful people manage unconsciously. She found that top performers in every field mastered these signals through a technique she calls conscious competence. Think about the last time you met someone who immediately impressed you. Chances are they used at least 3 techniques without you realizing it. The power lies in the subtlety. When done correctly, these methods feel completely natural to both parties. The science shows that first impressions are formed through a complex interplay of these elements. Each component, the smile, the eyes, the posture, the handshake, the body language, works together to create what Lowndes calls the symphony of presence. Picture a crowded room. The air filled with conversations. For many, this scene triggers anxiety. But what if I told you that small talk isn't small? Consider the case of Robert, a brilliant engineer who struggled in social settings. His technical skills were exceptional, but he couldn't build relationships beyond his immediate team. That changed when he learned Lowndes' never the naked hind technique. Small talk is your gateway to meaningful connections. But here's what makes it powerful: it's not about being clever. It's about being present. Lowndes discovered that successful communicators use a method she calls the echo effect. When someone shares information, they don't just respond, they build. Here's how it works. A CEO Lowndes studied would note even the smallest details shared in casual conversation. 3 weeks later, he'd reference these details in follow-up meetings. His retention rate for new clients? 85% higher than the industry average. The technique fits a fundamental human need, to be heard and remembered. But there's more to it than just remembering details. Lowndes identified specific patterns in how top communicators transition from casual exchanges to deeper conversations. They use what she calls conversation hooks, carefully placed phrases that open doors to meaningful dialogue. Take Peter, a sales executive who transformed his approach. Instead of launching into his pitch, he'd spend the first 5 minutes following Lowndes' "be a slave to the elements" technique. His conversion rate doubled in 3 months. The most fascinating part? These techniques work across cultures. Whether in a boardroom in New York or a cafe in Paris, the principles remain the same. The most powerful aspect of Lowndes' small talk strategy is called Big Baby Pivot, a technique that instantly changes how people respond to you. Here's a real example from her research. Most people give a quick nod or brief hello when someone joins a group conversation. However, top communicators turn their entire bodies toward the newcomer, give them full attention, and make them feel like the only person in the room. This complete physical and mental shift is why some people leave lasting impressions while others are forgotten. Watch successful politicians. They masterfully employ what Lowndes calls the flooding formula. They don't just listen, they lean in slightly, maintain eye contact, and respond with their entire being. The technique earned its name because it floods the recipient with feelings of importance. But here's the crucial element most people miss: timing. Lowndes found that exceptional communicators never rush their responses. They use the 3-second rule, a brief pause before responding that signals genuine consideration of what was just said. Take the case of Sarah, a junior executive who struggled in networking events. After learning these techniques, she discovered something remarkable. By slowing down her responses and using the Big Baby Pivot, senior executives started remembering her name, seeking her opinion, and inviting her to important meetings. The real power of small talk isn't in the words, it's in the delivery. Lowndes documented hundreds of successful interactions and found a consistent pattern. The most effective communicators make their conversation partners feel heard, valued, and understood. The difference between average communicators and masters often comes down to one critical skill: the ability to read and adapt to any situation. Consider this. In one of Lowndes' most revealing studies, she followed executives in high-stakes negotiations. The top performers all shared a remarkable ability she calls tracking. They remembered every detail about their contacts, business facts, personal interests, family stories, and even favorite restaurants. This wasn't just a good memory. These executives kept detailed records on the back of business cards, a technique that led to millions in successful deals. One particular CEO closed a $40 million contract by remembering his client's passion for sailing and arranging a crucial meeting on a boat. Lowndes discovered that speaking like a VIP requires mastering the echo effect. When communicating with high-level executives, successful people mirror their conversation partners' exact words and phrases. This isn't mimicry, it's strategic alignment. Here's a striking example. James's sales representative struggled to connect with corporate clients. After learning to track their specific language patterns and industry terms, his success rate increased by 70%. He wasn't selling better products, he was speaking their language. But perhaps the most powerful technique Lowndes uncovered was the calculated compliment. Unlike casual praise, calculated compliments are precisely timed, specific, and based on careful observation. They're delivered when least expected but most appreciated. The art of the calculated compliment transformed Barbara, a real estate agent who mastered what Lowndes calls timing points. Instead of immediately praising a client's choice, she would unexpectedly wait, observe, and deliver her compliment. Her property closings increased by 40% in 6 months. Professional communication requires another crucial skill, what Lowndes terms the great scorecard in the sky. Every interaction has an invisible balance sheet and top communicators always know the score. Let me share a fascinating case study. 2 executives meet for lunch. One arrives 5 minutes late. In most situations, a quick apology suffices. However, high-level communicators understand the subtle debt created. They know how to repay it, often by offering more value in the conversation or taking extra initiative in follow-up actions. Then there's that hands-horse sense technique, named after a remarkable story of an apparently brilliant horse who could count. The reality? The horse was reading subtle body language cues from his audience. Like this horse, master communicators pick up on minimal signals that others miss. Consider John, a merger specialist who turned around failing negotiations using these techniques. While others focused on words, he watched for slight changes in posture, eye movement, and hand positions. He could tell when to press forward and pause, all from signals most people never notice. The most powerful aspect of these advanced techniques is their universal application. Whether in a boardroom or at a social gathering, understanding these human dynamics gives you an extraordinary advantage. Understanding group dynamics is what separates leaders from followers. Lowndes discovered that being an insider in any crowd isn't about who you know but how you read the room. Let's examine the case of Michael, a consultant who walked into a room full of industry specialists. Instead of immediately joining conversations, he used Lowndes' rubberneck the room technique. He stood in the doorway for exactly 40 seconds, scanning the gathering. This brief pause allowed him to map the social dynamics before making his first move. The technique proved remarkable. Michael could position himself effectively by understanding who the key players were and how they interacted. Within months, he secured contracts with 3 major companies represented at that event. Lowndes identified specific patterns in how top networkers navigate professional gatherings. They use what she calls the scramble therapy, purposefully putting themselves in unfamiliar situations to develop social flexibility. Take Patricia, a CEO who would deliberately attend events outside her industry. Each time, she used 3 key techniques. First, she observed the group's communication style. Second, she identified the informal leaders. Third, she adjusted her approach to match the group's energy. But here's what most people miss about social intelligence: it's not just about joining groups, it's about making genuine connections. Successful people use the accommodation loop, a technique that subtly matches others' speaking patterns, energy levels, and even breathing rates. One of Lowndes' most remarkable findings involves what she calls the 3-corner technique. At any gathering, influential people position themselves at points where natural traffic flows intersect. They understand that location matters as much as conversation. Here's an example that changed how a Fortune 500 company trained its sales team. At industry conferences, its top performer consistently generated more leads than anyone else. The secret wasn't in his pitch, it was in his positioning. He would establish himself at what Lowndes calls power points, where people naturally pause during events. The research revealed another crucial pattern. Successful people use the business card dossier. After every meaningful conversation, they write key details on business cards. However, unlike basic note-taking, they record specific emotional markers from the conversation. Consider this real-world application. James, an investment banker, transformed his client relationships using this method. On each card, he noted personal interests mentioned casually, Topics that sparked genuine enthusiasm. Specific phrases they used repeatedly. Future events they mentioned. 6 months later, he could reference these details in conversations, creating what appeared to be an extraordinary memory. His client retention rate increased by 60%. However, perhaps the most powerful aspect of social intelligence is what Lowndes calls the echo effect. When groups share stories or experiences, master communicators know exactly when to participate and when to observe. The echo effect became evident in a fascinating observation of board meetings. The most influential members rarely spoke first. They waited, watched, and then added value to existing conversations. This pattern repeated across different industries and cultures. Another powerful technique Lowndes uncovered is the parrot and repeat. When someone makes a significant point, skilled communicators briefly repeat the key phrase, showing they are fully engaged. This simple technique creates immediate rapport. Take the example of Linda, a negotiations specialist. During complex deals, she would carefully echo important phrases her clients used. The result? Her clients reported feeling more understood and valued. Her closing rate on major contracts increased by 45%. But the real mastery comes in understanding what Lowndes calls conversational temperature. Every group interaction has an energy level, a temperature. Top communicators know how to read and match this temperature perfectly. Here's how it works. First, they observe the group's pace of conversation. Then, they match the energy level precisely. Finally, they gradually adjust the tempo to achieve their goals. A senior executive used this technique to transform hostile takeover meetings into collaborative sessions. He could guide discussions toward productive outcomes by matching and gradually shifting the conversation's temperature. The most remarkable aspect? These techniques work because they tap into fundamental human psychology. Long-term relationship building requires a skill that Lowndes discovered in her research of highly successful people, the ability to create what she calls instant history. Let me share a revealing case study. 2 CEOs meet for the first time at a conference. Within minutes, one establishes a connection that leads to a decade-long business partnership. The difference? He used Lowndes' time capsule method, creating a shared experience they could reference later. The technique works like this. Find a unique moment during your first meeting. Create a simple, memorable reference point. Use this reference in future interactions. Mark, a venture capitalist, mastered this approach. During his first meeting with a potential partner, they experienced a brief power outage. Instead of ignoring it, he turned this moment into their shared story. Months later, he could reference that day in the dark to instantly reconnect. But Lowndes discovered something even more powerful, the favor formula. Her research showed that people who ask for small, specific favors early in relationships create stronger bonds than those who offer favors. Consider this example. Sarah, a marketing director, would ask new contacts for book recommendations. This simple request accomplished 2 things. It made the other person feel valued as an expert. It created a natural reason for a follow-up conversation. The most successful relationship builders understand what Lowndes terms the Great Scorecard. The Great Scorecard revealed a pattern among successful relationship builders. They intuitively track the balance of giving and receiving in every relationship. This isn't about keeping score, it's about maintaining harmony. Here's a remarkable example from Lowndes' research. A senior partner at a law firm kept detailed records of every interaction with clients. Not just meetings and calls, but personal milestones they mentioned, problems they shared casually, small preferences they expressed, plans they discussed. This information became invaluable. He knew exactly when to reach out, what to reference, and how to maintain meaningful connections. His client retention rate was 80% higher than his colleagues. Lowndes also uncovered what she calls the thank you technique. Most people say thank you and stop there. Top relationship builders add a specific reference to the favor or action. Instead of thanks, they say thank you for taking the time to explain the market trends. But perhaps the most powerful technique is the silent service. Skilled relationship builders act without notice when someone mentions a challenge or goal. They share relevant articles weeks later. Make beneficial introductions. Remember and follow up on the mentioned projects. Take Robert, an investment advisor who transformed his practice using these methods. He began tracking client conversations for personal details. When a client mentioned their daughter's interest in medicine, he silently arranged an introduction to a leading physician in his network. Imagine standing at the edge of a social landscape where every interaction could alter the trajectory of your life, where a single conversation can unlock unseen doors, and where the words you choose become the architects of your destiny. Leil Lowndes' research reveals a startling truth: communication isn't just a skill, it's survival. In our hyper-connected world, the ability to connect authentically has become humanity's most critical currency. But here's the raw, unvarnished reality: most people speak, but few communicate. Throughout this journey, we've uncovered communication techniques that don't just change conversations, they transform lives. The top 3 transformative techniques. 1. The flooding smile. More than a gesture, it's a strategic emotional weapon that disarms, connects, and creates instant rapport. 2. Echoing. A psychological mirroring technique that subconsciously signals deep understanding and builds immediate trust. 3. The business card dossier. A memory technique that turns casual encounters into powerful networking opportunities. But implementation isn't about memorization. It's about transformation. Real-world application scenario. Picture Jake, a mid-level manager overlooked for years. After mastering these techniques, he doesn't just communicate, he commands rooms. Promotions follow. Opportunities emerge. Practical implementation tips. Start small. Choose one technique per week. Practice in low-stakes environments. Record and analyze your interactions. Embrace discomfort as your growth mechanism. Communication isn't a skill you learn. It's a muscle you develop. Every conversation is an opportunity. Every interaction is a canvas. Your words are your most powerful instrument. Master them, and you'll master your world. But knowledge without action is just potential energy waiting to collapse. Right now, you stand at a crossroads. Behind you, a landscape of missed connections, unspoken opportunities, and silent frustrations. Ahead, a world where you communicate with precision, empathy, and unshakable confidence. Leil Lowndes challenges us with a profound insight from the book's final pages. Remember, repeating an action makes a habit. Your habits create your character. And your character is your destiny. This isn't just communication advice. This is a blueprint for personal transformation. Critical lessons from Lowndes. Communication is not about being perfect. It's about being human, authentic, and intentional. Key critiques from the book. Most people listen to respond, not to understand. Body language speaks louder than words. Social intelligence is a learnable skill, not an innate talent. The most successful people are those who make others feel valued. In Leil Lowndes' own words, nobody gets to the top alone. Over the years, people who seem to have it all have captured the hearts and conquered the minds of hundreds of others who helped boost them, rung by rung, to the top of whatever corporate or social ladder they chose. Your move. Your transformation starts now. But wait. Your communication journey doesn't end here. If these insights have sparked something within you, a hunger to transform your interactions, to unlock your true potential, then you can't stop now. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Join a community of communication revolutionaries. Your next steps. Drop a comment below. Which technique resonated most with you? Share your biggest communication challenge. Tell us how you'll implement these strategies. Bonus challenge. Tag a friend who needs to level up their communication game. Let's create a ripple effect of connection and growth. Remember, every comment, every share, every subscription is a step towards becoming a communication master. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Let's amplify it together. Subscribe. Comment. Transform.